Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great edition here on the Bailey Pod. Tonight, I'll be bringing you an action-packed show. Again, an action-packed show. We got some good things percolating tonight, so don't touch that dial. Don't move that seat. Stay in your seat, and we're going to bring you a treat. Guys, tonight I'll be bringing you the game of the week, my quick take on Guilford and Harlem. I'll give you that take here in just a second. I'll be also, going over the Bailey Pod top performers lists of the week 5. Also, we'll be bringing you our Nick 10 top 5 teams at week 5. Again, Nick 10 top 5 teams at week 5. Also, I have Harold Bone of Rockton Roscoe News that'll join me tonight. He's been a great contributor here on the Bailey Pod. He's going to join us tonight and talk a little bit about the Hononegah-Freeport game that went down last week over there at Hononegah. Also, I'll bring in a great guest tonight, a coach who is actually on his way up. He's got his ball club right now at a 2-3 start. They seem to be progressing each and every week, and I think that's what he wants. Coach from Belvidere is in the house. Coach Sean Donnelly will be joining us tonight, and we'll be sitting down with him talking about their 2-3 record and what they want to do here going forward here in the Nick 10 Conference as playoffs get closer and closer, folks. Yeah, already coming to a close, regular season. Wow. Folks, before we get in the show, the meats and potatoes, I call it the show, I usually tell my viewers to go get a snack of your choice, beverage, but also tell you to go get your siblings and your aunts, your uncles, and the UPS guy if he's in the area this week, or the FedEx lady if she's in the area this week, because it's really going to be that type of show. So I'm going to go ahead right now and just go ahead and get my snack, and I'm going to allow you to go ahead and get your snack. Folks, like I said before, we got an action-packed one tonight. Don't touch that dial. We are coming back here with the Bailey Pod. Again, it's going to be that popcorn type of night. Let's get ready for the Bailey Pod. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great edition here on the Bailey Pod. Before we get into the meats and potatoes of the show, every week I come on and I pay my thanks to the subscribers, the viewers. If you've gone and you like the Bailey Pod, I always start the show out by showing my thanks and definitely showing my gratitude towards those who have actually supported the Bailey Pod here over the last few seasons. Guys, I want to thank you again for taking time and just sitting down and really enjoying the Bailey Pod. Hopefully you're enjoying what you're getting. I'll be continuing to bringing you new content week in, week out. Without a doubt, I'm going to do that. I'll be bringing you coaches, players each and every week, sitting down with coaches and getting their input on games coming up, getting their input on games that they just may have played a week prior. So again, hopefully you're liking what I'm serving, and I'll keep serving it. Remember, guys, go subscribe, go like, and make sure you guys click that bell at the bottom right-hand corner. Click that bell at the bottom right-hand corner so you can be notified for all new content that I'll be dropping each and every week. Guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the heart of the show. I'm going to bring on my contributor here with the Bailey Pod, Harold Bone of the Rockton Roscoe News. What's happening, Harold?
Tim, how you doing, man? I can't believe we're over halfway through the high school football regular season already. It's incredible. With this beautiful weather we've been having, it doesn't feel like fall weather, but, man, another great Friday night of football last Friday night in the Nick 10.
Man, another great one. We're going to get into that in a second. So, but yeah, I want to thank you for joining me again here on the Bailey Pod. As your contributor, you've been bringing some great insight, to the show. I want to thank you for that. Hopefully you'll continue to come on and join me each and every week, and we can just continue to go through the show as we do, having fun, man, and bringing on good athletes and also great coaches. So I want to thank you for coming on again this evening. I'm going to go ahead and get into my Bailey Pod top performers of the week. And some of these guys on my list you may know, some you may not know, but I thought it was a really good list that I put together for the week. A lot of guys really stepped up this week, showed out, and we're just going to go ahead and highlight these young men here in a second. As soon as I find my Bailey Pod top performers, here we go. Bailey Pod top performers of the week. Here we go, folks. As follows. Here we go. Jackson Cook, Harlem. Jaden Williams, Jefferson. Ladarius Foster, Harlem. Chris Porter, Beast Mode. Wow, he had a phenomenal game over there at Harlem the other night from Guilford. Jackson Strenquist, Demetrius Taborn, Gavin Sanders, Deion Stidwell, Adrian Bucci, Nathan Alexander, Jason Teal, and Nick Alvarez. Congratulations again to those guys who made the list this week. Guys, keep balling out. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come get you. So just make sure you guys keep doing what you do on a daily basis, and I'll keep highlighting you guys each and every week. So again, I just want to say big congrats to those guys that made the Bailey Pod top performers of the week after week 5. We're going to continue to move through the show. I'm going to bring Harold back. Harold, you still with us, Harold?
I am.
Good. Right here. Hey, so, I want to first get off into my take. Game of the week last week over there at Harlem. Really great game. I call it the game of the week, a must-see game, and I thought it was really that type of game over there with two great teams. Harlem at the time 4-0, Guilford coming in 3-1. We know what type of star power that was on the field that night, and it showed because all those guys really stepped up and had a phenomenal game. But as you look at the score of the game, Guilford walks out of there with the W. The final score was 31-28. Game came down to the wire. This thing was tied at halftime. Not tied at halftime, Harold, but Guilford was up 17-14 at halftime. And I knew the team that could actually stretch the field first was actually probably going to go up and potentially keep that lead. And if you go back and you look at the tape of those two teams, no one really stretched the field as those two teams are accustomed to doing each and every week. And it kind of surprised me. And I sat there on the sideline talking to my colleague, Scott Leber, and I said, Scott, we're not seeing these two teams as we've seen in the past 3 weeks really stretch the field. There were really no deep balls. It was a lot of short, intermediate stuff, things on the perimeter, the screens, the hitch routes. But there was really nothing deep until second half. Harlem comes out, punches Guilford in the mouth. An heroic, phenomenal catch by Jackson Cook. Big time throw from the quarterback over there at Harlem and Fawcett. And Harlem goes up. Well, Guilford had two choices. They could rise to the occasion or they could lay down. And the team that I saw compared to the first half, second half, when I saw Guilford in the second half, they were a totally different team than they were in the first half. I thought in the first half, they were really trying to do too much. They had a few drops in the first half, some drops, from Tilson, and also Taylor had a couple drop balls there too in the first half. There wasn't really a really great night from the quarterback play from Weber, as I thought that he would actually come into this game, particularly it being a big marquee game, and he would actually want to put his stamp on a game this notable. As what Harlem did, Harlem just came out, they played sound, didn't really turn the ball over. They had Foster and Broom going, they had the ground game going, and they had some things going in the passing game. But I will say this: you got to kudos to Guilford's defense for putting pressure really on Fawcett. I thought they came up big. I think they came out with a few sacks. Fawcett actually fumbled the ball. Guilford scooped and scored, went in for a touchdown. So again, the pressure I think that they put on that young man really showed his immaturity. Again, I'm not taking anything away from that young man. I thought he played well, but also at times his ball security wasn't there. I saw him carrying the ball a few times. He would actually run through the holes, and he once had the ball above his helmet. Not sure what that was about, but you could tell that he was a sophomore. You could tell that he was an underclassman. Now you go back and you look at Guilford's quarterback. You look at Weber. Well, in the first two series, I thought Weber still looked like he hadn't grown up yet until the second half, and he came out second half, had a little bit more velocity on the ball, making bigger plays, making some plays with his feet as a quarterback should. Wasn't really under a lot of duress the entire game against Harlem, but when he did need to use his legs, he did that well. And again, I thought Guilford actually phenomenal run game Guilford had on Friday night. I thought Baby Beast Mode, I call him. I thought he had a phenomenal night on the ground. Chris Porter, that is, had a phenomenal night on the ground. I think he had over 160 yards rushing, over 25 carries. His toughness and his zeal, his grit, and his moxie that he ran with. That's why he got the name Baby Beast Mode, because he was running relentlessly, and it took 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 defenders to bring that young man down. Harlem had a good night on defense. They just really couldn't stop the run game of Guilford. Guilford would get 5 here, 6 here, 7 here, 8 here. They would make, pop some big runs of 15, but what a well-fought game of two really great teams. And I said it on the show on the overtime on Friday night. Harlem has nothing to lament about. Obviously you want to come away with the victory, but, again, Harlem played a really good game. There's no such thing as a moral victory. If they could get that back, I'm pretty sure they would want that game back, but Guilford just didn't give up. Again, they looked a little rusty. First half came out very lethargic. Looked like they were trying to do a little bit too much in that first quarter, and then came back out second half, made their adjustments, and were able to capitalize on some things that Harlem was doing incorrectly. So again, that's my take from the Guilford Harlem game. If those two could play again, I definitely wouldn't parlay on it. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, Tim, I think, I had the opportunity to watch the game film from the end zone, which is a great perspective if you get a chance to watch it ever. So one of the things that I make note of, both defenses did a good job of keeping a lot of that stuff in the first half in front of them, because they played a little bit more. It's not a zone, but it's more of a light man-to-man. And so they didn't allow guys to get behind them. Where in the second half, I think they stepped up, and that's when you had kind of the deeper balls. As far as the running game, Porter, he's just an absolute engine to that Guilford team. He is the engine.
Absolutely.
If someone's going to come in and beat Guilford, they're going to have to stop that running game. That's what they're going to need to do. And right now,
I agree.
Averaging over 300 pounds on your offensive line, which Guilford does, they're going to be a tough team to beat. I mean, I would love to see them play Belvidere North again. They're not going to meet each other again this year. But, man, that would be a fantastic game just like the first time. But I think Guilford has continued to get better and better and better and more confident as the season's gone on. And you can just tell in that game the stars showed up, I think, in the second half for both teams.
Absolutely.
All the stars, both sides. I know Weber maybe didn't play up to his normal standard, but I still say he did enough. He did enough to win that football game, and he's still a fine football player. You got to give some credit to Harlem with what they were trying to do there to kind of slow him down and stop him. But look, he's a smart enough football player, and he's been around enough to know, hey, it's okay if I turn around and hand it to my running back who's going to give me 160 yards a game, and maybe I'm not having the best passing game. We still won the football game at the end of the day.
And if you go back and you look at the game itself, and you look at the quarterback play between the two quarterbacks, again, not to take anything away, and I'm not taking anything away from Fawcett. I thought he played a decent game. I'm pretty sure there's some balls that he threw that he wished he could get back, but as it got late in the game, I knew who that general was on that field at that quarterback position. And that was Weber. I mean, he became a different kid that second half that I saw in the first half. What they were able to do really in the run game speaks for itself. I mean, baby beast mode. 160 on the ground, 25 carries. I mean, he really truly carried that team Friday night over there against Harlem. I think what he was able to do also too, he set that pass up for Guilford late in that second half, because again, Guilford had a lot of drops first half. weren't getting a lot of things done in the air. Came out second half, and they were a little bit more productive in the air than they were in the actual first half.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Coach, I'm sure I'd love to have a chance to talk to him and just ask him if his team was maybe a little bit too hyped, too full of energy, and that's why they had so many drops. And I would call it errors, some mental mistakes in that first half. And
Right.
as they calmed down in that game, I think that was a big thing for Guilford. As far as Harlem goes, Fawcett, that's really the biggest game he's played in probably his entire life. They played Hononegah, but it really wasn't a close football game. Fawcett, he's got a ton of ability going ahead. And it's hard. Tim, you can remember playing in big games in high school. Your first one, you don't know how your body's going to react. You don't know how your
Right.
teammates are going to react. He did enough to win the game. Just Guilford was able to make a couple more plays, and he's good.
Right.
Look, we're lucky enough to have him for 2 more years in the Nick 10.
Right, absolutely.
He's a fine football player. I enjoy watching him, especially in that game. He's got some talented underclassmen to go with him. But Guilford, like I said,
yeah, Guilford just didn't. Again, if you go back and you look at the game, I mean, Guilford just didn't lay down. Guilford kept fighting and fighting and fighting. Guilford played with a lot of moxie that night, and Coach Cap did a great job of getting his guys in position to make plays. Tilson had a solid game Friday night. Taylor dropped a couple balls, early in the first half, but he actually got on track and redeemed himself in the second half, came up with a big catch in the fourth quarter to continue to put them in position to go down and score and take the lead. So, Guilford, again, I'm pretty sure they can tell you it wasn't our best game. We made a lot of mistakes. We were very lethargic in the first half, but it goes to show you what type of team we really have this year and the things that we're capable of doing if we come out and play the style of ball that Guilford's capable of playing.
Yeah, the thing I enjoyed, I think, the most about that is I believe Guilford got down early in that game and they were able to bounce back, and then Harlem bounced back, and both teams they answered the bell. They did. That was a great high school football game. Both teams answered the bell, and Guilford, I think, is going to learn a lot more than I think Harlem from that game. I think Guilford understands that, hey, we're good enough by doing our basic stuff to beat a lot of really good football teams. Right. We need to tighten those things up that we really struggled at. And where can we go from here? Right. Probably pretty good run in the playoffs. If not,
right. Yeah. If you look at the schedule, Guilford actually puts himself in a really good position to really potentially run the table these next 4 weeks. I mean, they're at Jefferson Friday night. They come back at Freeport at home, and then they travel to East. Well, not travel to East, but at Swanson Stadium, they play East, and then the regular season culminates with Boylan. So, looking at their schedule, I mean, Guilford's got a shot. Guilford's got a shot here, Harold, to really win out over these next 4 weeks. It's going to be interesting to see, the guys. It's going to depend on a few things. Guys staying healthy. Not coming out and turning the ball over, not coming out, on a high level, so to speak, in the first half, instead of, playing catch up, so to speak, in the second half. They really weren't playing catch up, but they just didn't play that style of ball in the actual first half as they did in the second half. And again, as you get later into the season, you want to see what type of team you have, because again, you're going to end up potentially drawing somebody in the playoffs that may come from a conference that's a little bit stiffer than yours. So you just want to make sure that, number one, your guys are healthy, and number two, everything is hitting on all cylinders in all three phases: special teams, defense, and offense.
Yeah, we had a chance to talk to Coach Capriotti. I'd be surprised if his team doesn't really look at these next 4 games as the opportunity to build on where they're already at. And when the playoffs come, no matter who they play in the first round, I'd expect them to be ready to go. I'm so impressed with that program and the coaching staff over there, and the way they operate. And I think Coach Capriotti's got this year's team phenomenal. Next couple of years, they're going to be, moving the train down the tracks as well. I just think they'll be ready. And as you mentioned, the schedule, the rest of the season, I know they play Jefferson. I think it's Thursday this week, since it's at Jefferson because of their home field issues. And then I don't want to say any high school football game's easy, but look, they got a schedule break. The majority of their tougher games, from the vantage point right now, were early in the season, and now they've gone through that gauntlet with 1 loss. They should be able to get pretty healthy with their schedule, hopefully with their bodies going into the playoffs. So I'd expect them to run the table, finish with 1 loss, and if Belvidere North, if they can run the table, they're going to be conference chance. If not, Guilford's got a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you look at you just alluded to Belvidere North. I mean, they could actually run the table, possibly run the table these next 4 weeks. They got a big game coming up this week, and I think Belvidere is going to play them tough. That rivalry there is just a great rivalry to watch. I think Belvidere is going to play, Belvidere North tough. I think it's going to be not easy, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be easy for any team moving forward, to win 4 straight, because again, any given Thursday, even given Friday, I think, looking at the schedule, I think, again, Freeport's playing well. I mean, Freeport and Guilford haven't even played yet. So Freeport, if they come out and they're hitting on all cylinders, they could give Guilford a go. So, there's no deadlock, I don't think, with any of these teams to say that anybody's going to run the table these next 4. But I think we expect a lot of these teams to, win out these next 4. So, again, great game over there on Friday night. Great electric atmosphere. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, in the area, watching that game there. 2 great teams with 2 great coaches going head to head with phenomenal a bevy of playmakers on both sides of the ball. Again, congratulations to Guilford. But if I'm Harlem, my head's high. I'm not going to lament about anything about this loss. It's in my rear view. We got to move forward. We got 4 more to go try to get and try to win this Nick 10 crown.
Yep, and Coach Morrow mentioned it when he was on the with us earlier in the season that, just like last year's loss in the playoffs, they took that, they learned from it, they grew from it, and they're going to move on now. And I'm sure that's what they're going to take away from the Guilford game.
Absolutely.
He's got a great coaching staff over there.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, Harold, we're gonna continue to move through the show. We're gonna bring in our next guest here in just a second. He's got his team right now at 2-3. They're really playing at a really high clip right now, and he's one of the up and coming young coaches in the Nick 10 that actually has poured a lot into his program. And again, they're sitting at 2-3. They're sitting at 2-3 for a reason. They're a good ball club, and I think they're on their way up. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Coach Donnelly from Belvidere. How you doing, Coach? How you doing, Coach? I don't think he can hear us. Viewers, bear with us.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you, Coach. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you guys handling it tonight?
Good, man. Good. Little audio difficulty. It happens to the best of us, Coach. Shake it off. Hey, we want to thank you tonight for joining the Bailey. We want to thank you tonight for joining the Bailey Pod. Definitely means a lot to myself and Harold having you on. Right now, you got your team right now at 2-3. A lot of people would say, Belvidere is on their way up. And I would have to agree. I think you've done a phenomenal job over there these last couple seasons as you've taken over at head coach. Coach, talk to me a little bit about, the transition coming from the assistant coach and now becoming the head coach. Again, you're 2 years in there at Belvidere. Talk to us a little bit about that transition. Was it easy for you, or was there a little difficulty making that transition from that assistant coach to that head coach?
The transition wasn't as bad. It actually worked out nice having to know the kids. You get to, you already know your players, their strengths, your weaknesses, but you also have an idea of where you want this program to go. And that's been my big thing the last 2 years is giving this program the direction it needs to be going and to try and correct, what's been a downtime the last decade here in Belvidere, and, trying to bring back a once proud tradition of what was Buck football.
Yeah, Coach, kind of speaking on that, Belvidere hasn't had a winning record since 2015. And when you came in, my understanding is you've tried to re-implement a slogan, a process, whatever you want to call it, called the Buck Way. What does that mean to you? And then how does that translate to things that happen on the football field?
So, our Buck Way is just the way we want our players to handle themselves on the field, off the field, in the school, in our classroom, in the community, and that's, number one, we want to create, gentlemen, we want to create men, guys who are going to be committed to, what they want to go out and do. And that's, being committed in the classroom, taking care of their schoolwork, getting to class on time, being in school, being committed, to the team. So what does that mean, being committed to the team? We're going to put everything that we need to do, whatever it takes, as we kind of say, to, hey, we're here every day at practice. We're giving our best. We're part of this group, and understanding that we all play a role in what Belvidere football is going to be. And we need to fulfill that role, whether that's, the starting wide receiver or the scout DB who's trying to make that wide receiver better, or the backup lineman who's pushing that guy in front of him to be the best that he can be, on Friday nights, and then carry that over into our community to be respectable people and, get our community back behind us and wanting to come out and enjoy some Buck football.
Coach, again, 2 years in now, what have been some of the actual tougher things for you to do to get that program where you have it now? Again, you guys are sitting at 2-3. I know it's still kind of early in the season. We're midway through the season. What are some of the things that you've actually instituted into that program that has you guys right now really playing at a really, 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 really good point right now at midseason?
One of the big things is teaching these kids how to be good teammates to each other, how to pick each other up, how teaching them leadership skills. One of the big things I saw as an assistant and coming into head coaching was we lacked some good quality leaders. And it wasn't that our kids couldn't be that, they just needed to be kind of taught and pushed towards giving that opportunity to be leaders. And we've gotten a lot of buy-in in the last, I would say 8 to 12 months with our kids of, hey, we want to go in this direction. We're willing to make change. We're willing to sacrifice, the time hanging out with the girlfriends or the other friends. And we want to be in the weight room. We want to be together in summer camp. And we know that this sacrifice is going to pay off in the long run. And, the last couple of weeks, we've started to see what that sacrifice looks like.
Yeah, Coach, you have history in many different programs coaching. Rockford Lutheran, you were at Kirkland, Hiawatha for a decade. What have some of those coaching opportunities allowed you to bring to the Belvidere program as you're trying to really flip the entire script and what the program has been for the last decade? What are some of those, I guess, pieces or ideas that, you bring to the program today?
I would say one of the big things going around a couple of those schools and having some of the different populations in those schools is it's taught me how to wear many different hats. Being down in Kirkland, you wore just about every hat you possibly could be. You go to a place like Belvidere and you have a lot more resources, and then it's a place of like delegation, trusting your coaches that you have because you have those coaches there. At Lutheran, one of the big things, I learned there was how to, take on many roles and, put my time together to make sure that I'm successful in all those different roles. And that's been, something I've taken from each of those stops along the way. And I've also, learned how to take things from some of the other coaches I've had the opportunity to work with in regards to delegation, leadership, like I talked about before. Because so much of football, it's not just the X's and O's, it's getting every other, every little thing you can out of these kids, making sure that they're playing at their highest level and, they're good quality people.
Coach, again, looking at your schedule and also looking at some teams that you guys have actually ran up against here in the last few weeks, you guys, those losses that you guys have to Harlem 30-3, Guilford 28-3, Freeport 20-9, and then you come back the next 2 weeks, you beat East 46-0, and then you just knocked off Boylan 37-28. What has this season been able to tell you about your team at this juncture of the season?
Our kids are resilient. They're able to bounce back. They're able to learn from their mistakes. One of the big things we tried to point out to our kids after that Harlem game and going into that Guilford game, and then, it came up again in the Freeport game, which, could be very frustrating to keep hearing, but our kids learned from it was, guys, we just need to finish drives. We had drives that were 14 plays, 15 plays. We had one drive that our old coordinator, Chuck Leonard, didn't point out to me to the next day. He goes, we had a drive of 20 plays. I'm like, what did we get out of it? He goes, 3 points. I'm like, so we need to finish drives. That's our big thing right there on offense. Our defense was keeping us in games. And, our kids for 3 straight weeks kept hearing about, hey, guys, we need to take this next step. We need to finish a drive and finish in the end zone. And, the East game started off slow with that. But once we scored in the second quarter, the moniker on the sideline was, hey, we finished a drive. We got the ball in the end zone. So let's get greedy and let's go get some more. And our kids bought into that. And, you know, as you've seen in the last 2 weeks, I think they've done a pretty darn good job of making sure a lot of those drives finish in the end zone instead of just with, you know, a field goal attempt.
Yeah, Coach, when doing research for the interview, I made note that your last 2 weeks, your third down defense has done a phenomenal job. I don't think they've allowed a first down from what I could tell. You're holding the opponents 0 for 12 on third down. So, you know, that helps. Finishing drives on offense helps. I think your offensive line's playing a lot better, especially your two guards and center really have seemed to kind of shore things up. Is that something that you guys talk about, that, you know, your drives need to be finished from the line out, or does everyone just need to do their job that much better?
Well, so I'll start with the O-line play. One of the things, you know, we dealt with early on, especially in that first game, was, you know, we lost one of our best O-linemen early in that game. And so we had to shuffle things around in that week 1 game against Harlem, which then meant, you know, week 2, we're still shuffling things around. And it wasn't really till week 3 where we got to kind of get the line together that we really wanted. And I think that kind of started with the whole thing of finishing what we were trying to do with our line. Because, yeah, we needed to do things better on the outside with our receivers. And, you know, we took our starting quarterback, Devon, moved him out to wide receiver just to get another playmaker out there and brought in a new QB. But really it started really with our O-line and getting those guys up to speed with what we're trying to do. And I got to tell you, you're going to make my defensive coordinator a little bit jealous by saying 0 for 12 the last 2 weeks, because on third down, he either didn't notice that and didn't say anything, or he's trying to be sly on it. And so now I know he's going to be calling me out on it tomorrow.
You're welcome.
So,
right. You're welcome.
Right.
Yeah. I'll thank you for him right now.
Yeah.
Coach, real quick, where are you now compared to last year at this juncture? I mean, are you guys a lot further along this year compared to last year, or are there some parallels to where you were from this year to last year? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, we're a step ahead of where we were a year ago, which was one of the big things we talked about. Is, you know, each journey on this step is you know, we got to take another step forward. And you know, last week against Boylan, I honestly think having some of that adversity that went on in that game, you know, we jumped out to an early lead. Boylan comes back. How do we respond to it? And I was worried, you know, midway through the second quarter, because we had a lot of energy to start the game, of where our energy was going to be. And our kids responded by keeping that energy going on for 4 quarters. And they didn't let up. And when Boylan turned it into a 1-score game, you know, we immediately came back and responded. And that's why I think we're a step ahead, because I don't think we would have been there a year ago. I don't think we were ready to deal with that type of adversity and understand what it takes to finish a game that we had a lead in. Whereas this year's group, I think they're now starting to learn how special it is to win a high school game, because there's only 9 of them you're guaranteed. And so they're learning how to put together all the little things it takes to win those games and stay up throughout games and overcome mistakes. And that's why I told our kids on Saturday, I'm really excited to see how we handle going into North, their homecoming. And yeah, it's a rivalry. How are we going to respond against, and let's be honest, a real good North team?
Absolutely. Agreed. Agreed, for sure.
Coach, you also coach wrestling there at Belvidere, and you have for a number of years. How does that kind of play into your program? Do you recruit kids, you know, who are on the football team to the wrestling program? Do you kids recruit wrestlers to be football players? How does that all work?
I tell all my football players they're wrestlers, and they need to get out there and be on part of that team. And I tell every wrestler that they need to be a football player no matter what. Now, it hasn't boosted the numbers yet, but I think down the road, some of our kids are going to see the benefits of coming out to wrestling and learning, you know, leverage and staying low and balance, and how much that's going to help, especially on the O-line. And I listened to you guys earlier talk about, you know, how, Guilford and their program and how things are going. And I know for a fact that, the Guilford coach was a wrestling coach there for a while. And I know, what? He's taught those kids the right way, and I'm trying to steal a page out of his book.
Absolutely, Coach. Absolutely. Coach, before I get in there, Tim, what are some of the keys that you look at when you look at your team and you're playing well?
What do you mean by our keys?
Like, obviously finishing drives is a big thing, but it's, getting additional first downs, tipped passes at the line of scrimmage, more than one guy around the football tackling, things like that. Are those some of the keys that you look at?
So on defense, yes, one of the keys is are we rallying to the ball? The one thing I will say is we haven't gotten the turnovers like we did a year ago. We actually were pretty good despite our record on turnovers a year ago, but we haven't gotten those. We haven't affected them. But like you said, looking at third down, I guess we're doing pretty good somewhere there. So yes, rallying to the ball is one key on defense and making sure our kids are doing that. Offense, it's been ball security, which we've done a pretty good job of in the last 2 years, and knock on wood with ball security and keeping that going. And body language, especially on the sidelines, what is our body language and how is that going with our kids throughout the game?
Okay. And
Coach, I want to get back. Coach, I want to ask you a question. I know, the rich history over there at Belvidere. It's pretty extensive. And, I know, in the last decade or so, Belvidere hasn't really been that program that they may be accustomed to being back in the 80s and part of the 90s and the early 2000s as well. But, what are some of the things that you think that you need to do in order, you and your staff need to do in order for you guys to be able to get back to that type of prominence that we saw in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s? Because it looks like to me you're doing some of it already, but what are some of those other things?
Some of the other things are we need to grow our program more. We need to get some kids out that are in the building that need to be coming out and playing some football for us. And, to go back what you said about, also being a wrestling coach, I'm a recruiter in the winter to try and get some of those same kids out. I think the other thing, and this just goes to, our taking our steps forward, is getting our kids to continue to believe in themselves and believe that, just because the past says we've struggled, we can turn this ship around. And, that's been the big benchmark since I've taken over, is getting these kids to believe that, hey, they can be a part of something special. They can start something special. And that's been the direction we've been trying to take with these boys for the last 2 years.
Also, too, Coach, you just alluded to something about getting players out, kids in the hallways, out to the football team. Has it been a struggle for you guys year in and year out of getting guys out to come out and just play? And if that's been the case, then how have you guys gone about actually recruiting kids? Obviously, you're a teacher over there at Belvidere as well, but how do you guys on a day-to-day basis go out, during the off season and ensure that you're trying to get your numbers to where they need to be for the following year?
There's me and a couple of other coaches who are in the building, and in the off season, we recognize the athletes in the building who maybe they don't play a fall sport, they only play basketball, or hey, they only play baseball, and some of my coaches coach some of those sports. We just try and talk those kids up and explain to them, hey, you coming out and playing another sport is going to benefit you. And it's going to help you in the long run because, hey, we're keeping you in shape. We're going to be in the weight room. You're going to get better for that sport. Obviously I talk to the other, coaches that are in our programs at Belvidere, and, we communicate about how we can grow these kids. And that's kind of been the recruiting pitch, is just, hey, come on out and at least give it a try, and we can see what we can do with you, because we see some talent in you. And the other coaches there have been extremely supportive of us trying to get those guys out, which has been a huge benefit.
Talk to me a little bit about, Coach, you guys coming off a big victory over Boylan. Talk to me a little bit about that game going into that. How was your prep that week prior to Friday? Obviously, your preparation your Friday night outcome is a to me it's an indicator of your preparation, so to speak. So it sounds like you guys had a good week of prep to be able to go out and beat a decent team in the Boylan High School.
We started off the week a little slow on Saturday. Had a couple kids show up late to practice, which I'll be quite honest with you, I think actually helped us out because it kind of set the tone of we're not going to go back to just being we're okay with one win. We need to change the entire culture. And if kids are going to be showing up late and they don't want to be here for film on time, then hey, you know what? Then we need to change stuff up. And our kids from Saturday on realized, hey, we need to take a different approach after a win on how we're going to go because wins aren't going to just be handed to us. And that kind of set the tone. And even those kids who, came in late, they got their opportunities to get out there on Friday night. And I'll tell you what, man, they showcased them. They went out there and they took care of business and they were there bright and early on the next Saturday. I can promise you that.
Right. Nice. Yeah. Because again, looking at the game and just looking at some of the actual things that you guys were able to do offensively and the big defensive stops that you guys made. I know you had some key players that really, really had a phenomenal game. Your quarterback, Strunquist. Can you talk to me a little bit about his actual play this year? How has he been vital to the offense and his leadership on that team? What has it done for you guys week in and week out?
So, yeah, like I said earlier, we moved Sternquist into quarterback so we could move Devon Embry out to a wide receiver spot and just get another playmaker out there. And Sternquist, sophomore kid, he has stepped up in there and he looks like he's been running the offense for years. The way he gets the play calls in, he makes sure he relays them to everybody because we're, a no huddle team. He makes sure that everybody hears that. He protects the ball. He knows when to get rid of the ball. He kind of has that knack to just know pressure's coming in and with it. And, he does a great job pre-snap just reading that defense and knowing, hey, they took away this. This is my most likely next spot to go to. And he just takes what the defense is going to give him. And he's not going to Brett Favre it and try and, be a gunslinger or anything like that. He's going to take what they give him. And, if that's a 5-yard hitch, we're going to take the 5 yards and we're going to move on to 2nd and 5.
Coach, what about Nick Alvarez? He had a dominant game on the ground, 23 carries, 187, 3 TDs. Can you speak to us a little bit about how he's been an impact player for the Bucs this year? And can we continue to see this type of level of play from him moving forward? Yeah,
Nick had an awesome game, and Nick's an unbelievable kid. He's an unbelievable person. You meet him off the football field, and you would not think of him as the football player that he is out there. He runs like he's 225 and he's going to run you over. And I swear to God, the kid might be 160 pounds. He runs with some force behind him. He's not going to go down with the first hit. And Friday night, he just was in that beast mode where you were going to give him the ball, and his ultimate goal was he was going to find that end zone. And that final touchdown we scored to kind of cement the game, we had been marching downfield with Nick the entire time. And, Nick's taking hits in and out. And our offensive coordinators say, hey, get Nick out, give him a breather. And Nick comes to the sidelines and he falls down. He's like, he goes, I still got one more play in me. Get me out there. He wanted to finish what he started. And so, he's been, a heck of a bell cow for us on that offensive side. Kind of frustrated our defensive coaches because he also could be our starting safety very easily out there taking guys out. But, he really stepped it up. and I know there's some competition between him and Juan Cervantes as the other running back, because the week before Juan Cervantes had a nice breakout game too, running the ball.
Yeah, it's a nice problem you got there, Coach, having two great running backs like that. You mentioned Jackson Sternquist. I know he's a multi-sport athlete, and you guys got a number of kids that are multi-sport athletes, and you talked about recruiting them and things like that. Because Jackson is a multi-sport athlete, did you see something in him that would allow him to kind of step into the quarterback position? Did he have natural leadership kind of skills, or did you just see it from a pure athletic talent perspective?
I can't take the credit for it. I got to give that to my OC. Okay. He was working a lot with our quarterbacks throughout the entire summer. Putting in our offense, working with them with passing and all that. And every day after practice, we would sit down and we would talk about how things went with the QBs, how things were looking. And, every day was, every day or every other day, it's like, Sternquist is looking pretty good out there. He's throwing a good ball. He's making good decisions. His footwork is good. And my response was, I know, but we need to develop him on the sophomore level. And that was my response throughout the entire time. And then, things just presented themselves, at the beginning of the season where, offensively we're struggling a little bit. How do we make a spark? We got an athlete in, Devon Embry. If we slide him out to wide receiver, can we get the ball more in his hands in space and let him make plays? And the answer was yes. And so, it was, so who's next? It was Sternquist was the next kid up, and he's just kind of run with it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to let that go for the next couple of years.
Yeah, he
might even find an extra year of eligibility and come back.
Well, this isn't Division I college football. We're not there yet, Coach. We might get there eventually. Depends on what the IHSA says. But, Coach, what does it say about Embry and his willingness to move positions? Because look, being the high school starting quarterback, that's a big deal. I don't care what level of football you're at. Being the starting quarterback is a big deal. His willingness to move positions for the betterment of the team and not, be a downer or drag the team down. What does that say about him as an individual?
Says a lot.
It says Devon is buying into what we're trying to do, and that's what is best for the team. And I can remember Devon coming in, and when we had that conversation, I can vividly remember it. Sitting down, he walks in, and we shake hands and, explain the situation. And his response was, Coach, I get to play, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I get to make plays. It's like, yeah. He's like, I'm good. Let's go win ball games. And that was his exact words. And I'm like, all right, we just got the biggest buy-in we needed, because those guys are going to follow him. And there's not going to be, the upheaval of, we're bringing up a sophomore to replace a senior. We got Devon to buy in, and that helped with the rest of the team right there.
Yeah, and just like last year, I feel like you guys are ascending as the season's going on. Sometimes the team will hit a plateau, but you guys continue to, improve every week, get better, do things better. Do you guys talk about that as a coaching staff, as like, hey, we want to peak at this week 6, 5, 6, 7, or do you just do what you do better each and every week because the kids are buying in? You guys are, pushing the Buck way. What do you kind of, I guess, what plays into that? You guys getting better each and every week, whereas some teams kind of plateau a little bit throughout the season.
I mean, our talk amongst coaches has been the same thing with the kids, and that's just taking the next step forward in this process. So what is our next step? And, that's our Saturday meetings. How do we get better from here on out? Which it's not just the X's and O's parts. It's what's our communication going to be to our kids of what is this next step? And, this week, the next step is, hey, we had our energy up from the get-go. We battled adversity. Okay, so now we're going up against a team that's, we're playing at their place. It's going to be loud. It's their homecoming. How are we going to handle that pressure? And that's, our next step in that progression. And that's, the message that I say to the coaches is the same message that the kids hear. And, again, I'm really looking forward to see how we handle Friday night. And no matter how it goes, good or bad, we're going to learn from it and take that into, the following week.
And Coach, that leads me to my next question. Again, Belvidere North 5-0. You guys are sitting at 2-3. A great rivalry, right in your backyard, so to speak. Two great coaches, such yourself and then Coach Beck. What are some of the things that you have actually shared with your players this week? Because again, when you're playing big games such as you guys are going to be playing on Friday night, coaches, there's certain things that coaches say to their players that you may not say against a team that may not be as good as you. But when you're playing a team that like Belvidere North, sitting at 5-0, bevy of playmakers on both sides of the ball, well coached on both sides of the ball, how do you get your kids prepared for such a team as Belvidere North?
So, besides some of the things I've said earlier to you guys, one of my big messages to our kids was, hey, listen, at some point in this game, North is going to probably have the lead. As much as I would love to say we're going to have the lead from the start of the game to the end, hey, there's a chance that they're going to jump out and get some points on us, whether that's a field goal, a touchdown, whatever it is. They're a darn good football team. How do we respond to that? What is our makeup, and how are we going to come back from, that happening? And, as part of that discussion with the kids too, was letting them know, hey, this isn't North's second year in this program. Coach Beck's been there for a long time. He's had a lot of success with those guys on offense and defense. And, and that's part of the whole makeup of, hey, guys, we're in year 2. So frustrating things are going to happen. We're going to, mistakes are going to be made on both sides. We just need to regroup, push forward, and take our next step forward in this journey of, getting back to where we want to be.
Absolutely. So how's practice been this week? I mean, our guys, you're coming off this big victory against Boylan. A lot of people would say that, Boylan's not the team of past teams. I think everybody in the country knows that, but a win's a win, but how have you guys been since that victory? Again, did you tell your kids, hey guys, after the Boylan game, let's relish this one, very short, but we got to get locked in on Belvidere North because we got to go to their house on homecoming and play them. How has practice been this week for you guys? Are guys out running around with a chip on their shoulder, a good chip that is? How are the spirits right now of coming off that big victory, Boylan and now Belvidere North this Friday?
Spirits have been really good. Spirits have been high, like you would hope for after a good win. Whether Boylan's having a down year or not, it didn't matter to our kids. It was a win. It was against Boylan. It was ending, I think, 11 years of Boylan coming in and beating up on Belvidere. So to get that win, it didn't matter where Boylan sits right now for our guys. This was a win. This was a solid win. It was our homecoming. They were excited about that. And then it just moves us right into this week, which, we've had couple of good days of practices. Our kids have been, focused in. We reminded our kids on Saturday to, hey, you enjoy the win. You're going to hear from a lot of people you probably haven't heard from in a while saying, hey, congratulations. You beat Boylan. It hasn't happened this long. I said, but guys, remember, we got our next steps to take, and we got a tough team to get ready for. And our kids they've bought in. They came in Monday, lifted. Awesome. Came in, watched some film, got the scouting reports, and they were ready to move on. They were done with Boylan week, and we haven't talked about it since.
Nice.
Good deal. Coach, being that this is your second go-round as the head coach of Belvidere in the Nick 10, what are some of the things that you've learned from the conference that maybe you didn't know as an assistant or didn't because you didn't play in the conference? What are some of the things you maybe learned?
I learned there's some deep rivalries going on in here, and there's a lot of history behind those rivalries that that stem back long ways, which is good. It can be healthy to get those rivalries out there. I've learned how competitive these rivalries are and how competitive these teams are amongst each other. I've also learned how much, you got how many alumni and all these different coaching staffs that have, been at those places, and they want to see, their team succeed just as much as I want to see our boys succeed at Belvidere. And, it's been a fun battle to get to know some of those guys and, try and do our best against them.
Yeah. Well, Coach, as a father I am of myself, I thank you for being a coach of not one sport but two sports at the high school level, but also being a teacher as well. That's quite the undertaking that you've taken on in your life, and I hope you've enjoyed all of it.
I have. It's been a great journey for me and my family. We enjoy where we've ended up. I mean, I'm lucky where I ended up. From where I started to where I've come to being here at Belvidere and being welcomed in the way that I am with not just the football guys, but like you said, the wrestling guys, the families here, the students here. It's been a great journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, Coach, you've done a phenomenal job over there. I wish you nothing but luck the rest of the way this season, and just again, we want to thank you for coming and hanging out with us here on the Bailey Pod, talking football. Again, you guys are coming off a big win. Belvidere now 2-3, heading over to Belvidere North Friday night for the big game against the 5-0 Belvidere North Blue Thunder. Coach, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and let you go, and we're going to continue our show. But again, we want to thank you for stopping by.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great night. And I wouldn't be remiss without saying hi to my wife and how much I love her, and thank her for all her support.
All right, man. Hey, good man. Thank you. Appreciate you, Coach. Coach Donnelly, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thanks,
talk to you soon, man. That's a good man right there. That's a good man. Hey, look, when he walked in the door, that's a tough job. First of all, he got in only Tony left, not a lot of notice. They didn't know where they were going. There were over 20 candidates for that job. And luckily enough for Belvidere, they were able to find what looks to be the right candidate in Sean to bring that program and move them in the right direction. And that's why I want to go back to, preseason when we were talking about it. That's why I picked Belvidere to be my kind of surprise team on the year. And I'm going to toot my own horn here just because there's something around that program that he's got it moving in the right direction. Right. If you just talk with any of the kids out in the community, and I'm glad he kind of gave us a definition as to what the Buck way was. He talked about it, just getting things moving in the right direction. But there's a lot of positivity going on around that program. They won their last two games. Now they got quite a battle on their hands on Friday night.
Absolutely. And you know what, Harold, I think he knows that. I think he's definitely aware of that that it's going to be a tough task. But he coming off that big win against Boylan again. Everybody in the country knows that Boylan is not a good program this year. Everybody knows that. Okay, we don't even have to talk about that anymore. But coming off a win like that, and now going into this week against a good team like a Belvidere North, and having a good week of practice, as he actually alluded to just a second ago, tells me that Belvidere is a different program nowadays than years past. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
But what he's been able to do, the things that he's been able to inject into that program, making sure that guys are out for football, making sure that these young men are becoming young men, because he's right. It's more than football. It's more than the game of football. Football is not what you do. It's a sport that you play. And it sounds like to me he's actually delivering that message to his young men. And I think that's why he's able to get so many kids out. He's able to galvanize young men and get those young men to come out and play. And again, I think he's gonna be there for a while. I think he's gonna do some really good things. I think it's gonna take him a little while to get that program to really where it needs to be. And that's back up into that, top pack of the conference. No one wants to be at the bottom. It's lonely at the bottom. If you've never heard that saying, very lonely at the bottom, very happy at the top. But I think he's the right guy. It was a great hire. He's the right guy to get that program back up to where it was, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and if they could continue to win against some of the teams that maybe are struggling a little bit in the conference, and then compete with the better programs in the conference. That's going to help out their youth football program, their junior buck program,
Yep.
Get more kids involved in that, more kids, because you want to play for a winning program or a program that competes, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a snowball effect. You win, you get more kids, you get better players, you're going to produce more. Like So he's starting it at the high school level, and it's going to trickle down. And I'm excited to see what the next few years are for Belvidere.
Yeah, again, Coach Donnelly's done a phenomenal job. I mean, no one can refute that. I mean, what he's been able to do in 2 years of just getting more kids out and getting kids to really buy in, that speaks to who he is as a coach also too, but as a person, as a man, being able to galvanize young men and getting young men to come together as a unit and want to go out there and play on Friday nights and be something, so to speak. Because if you look at Belvidere's schedule, I mean, obviously North coming up Friday night. They play Jefferson, then they play Auburn, and then they culminate the regular season at Hononegah. Harold, I'm looking at this schedule, man, and there's quite a few here on this list that they can get.
Hey, I'm just gonna say that.
I'm just being honest, man. I think there's a few games here that Belvidere can actually go into somebody's stadium and pull out a victory here, based on what I'm looking at. Again, North, Jefferson, Auburn, Hononegah. Because again, look how they're playing right now. Again, they're 2-3. A lot of people say, okay, well, they're 2-3. No, that means something. They're 2-3. They're winning. Okay. They're a game below 500, and again, looking at the teams that they have left on their schedule, these are all viable games to win for Belvidere North, and I think I think he knows that. I think his staff knows that as well. And I think he knows that it's going to really be about their preparation that's going to determine the outcome of these next 4 weeks for that Belvidere Buck program.
Yeah, because I mean, what is it going to do for them if they go, say, 4-5 on the year? I mean, and what if they pull an upset and they get one more win and they go 5-4, right? Could they get to the playoffs? Maybe, but if they're close, I mean, that's a huge boost of energy for that program. He talked about his young sophomore quarterback who really, I mean, I'm very impressed with. For a kid who really was playing freshman ball last year, and
right.
I had a chance to see him on the Hononegah play against the Hononegah freshmen, and he has really improved quite a bit over the summer. And he's I know he's the AD's son, Josh. But yeah, I'm really impressed with where they're going, where they're heading. Right. Now for Friday night, that's a tall task to ask. Right. Any team in the Nick 10, but Belvidere. But the nice thing for Belvidere, though, all of their kids have played against all the North kids growing up in whatever sport it is. You've played against them. So there should be no, I don't want to say fear factor, but there's none of that awe factor of, oh my gosh, it's Belvidere North. It's Booker, it's Bucci, it's all the rest of the guys. They've played them. They're very familiar with them. So when the lights flip on Friday night, they know what they're in for. And I think I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be well-fought game. I think it's going to be a really hard-hitting football game. If you like hard-hitting football games, I would absolutely.
That's where I'm going to be Friday night. That's where I'm going to be Friday night. I'm going to be right there at Blue Thunder Stadium. That's going to be a really good game. Again, 2-3 Belvidere against 5-0 Belvidere North. So again, good luck to those two teams. Hurt, I want to move on. We're about to actually close here shortly, but I want to move on before we do. I know you were at the Freeport Hononegah game last week, and I just want to, touch on Hononegah here real quick and just get your perspective, and I'll chime in as well. But Hononegah, again, the score was 35-8. And looking at what Hononegah did, the week prior, the big loss to Guilford, really didn't perform well on both sides of the ball. Obviously against Freeport. Freeport's a damn good football team, people. I'm telling you, that 8 points that's uncharacteristic of Freeport in my estimation. But again, end score was 35-8. Is Hononegah improved this week compared to where they were 2 weeks ago against Guilford?
Well, I think the big thing in the game against Freeport was their strengths were Freeport's weaknesses. So Hononegah's defense was able to shut down that running game and really force Olsen to throw the football, and he struggled quite a bit. Honeyniga did a good job of converting third downs and extending drives. They got some really good special teams plays. Their defense got a turnover, a couple of mistakes by Freeport on kickoffs, allowed them to have to go the length of the field. They couldn't do it. Ball turned over. Honeyniga gets the punt at near midfield. They only have to go half the length of the field to get a touchdown. All of those things like that. Banker, their running back at 12 rushes, 89 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Drew Shockley had nearly 100 yards on the ground as well. So they didn't really need to do all that much through the air, and they were able to run the football. So really, Freeport's, like I said, Freeport's weakness was Honeyniga's strength, and that you could really tell as the game wore on. That's what took place. Is Honeyniga just did what they're good at, which is running the football and play good, solid defense.
Right.
And Freeport didn't have any answers for it, which honestly surprised me quite a bit. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. It just got a little out of control late in that third quarter into the fourth, and things just happen sometimes on Friday nights under the lights. But Freeport's a darn good football team, and I'd expect them to win the vast majority of the rest of their games. I know they got a tough one this week.
Right. You look at the stats here. I'm just looking at some notable stats here from the game. Freeport Honeyniga looked like net yards rushing was 217 for Honeyniga and 112 for Freeport. And look at another notable stat here. You look at passing net yards for Honeyniga, 98 yards. And I look at, and I'm going somewhere with this. I look at that stat, and I'm, I don't see balance in 98 yards passing. To me, it's really not enough for Honeyniga. I think they need more in that category there. I think yards that they earned on the ground at 217, that's Honeyniga football. 217, 250, close to 300. But that 98 yards of passing, I don't think that's Honeyniga caliber football at the quarterback position. Those type of stats. Again, I'm not going to get caught up in all the stats. Again, it's 98 yards, but I'm accustomed. What I'm accustomed to seeing each and every year are stats that say that net yards rushing 300, net yards passing 260, 250, 275, 280. Those are some things that we saw, and I think we got kind of spoiled with it. But those are some of the things that we've seen from Honeyniga quarterbacks in the last 2 to 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna say this because I was talking to someone having coffee on Sunday morning. I think Cole Warren skewed any results from a passing game perspective for Honeyniga. I don't know that they've always been a 50-50 or even a 2-to-1 passing ratio team. They haven't always had a great passing game, but they've always had a great running game. And I think what Cole Warren did is he exposed the whole idea of, like, oh my gosh, we could be a great passing team as well. We're a great running team, but we can be a great passing team as well. Kids are not walking through the door like Cole Warren. He was a phenomenal quarterback. And they had great wide receivers on the outside. So I think Honeyniga is what they are. They're a running team that plays good defense. They're never going to be a great passing team. They're just it's just not in the cards for them this year. Next couple of years, we'll have to see. They got some younger kids. We'll see what happens. But right now, they're just not a great passing team. Right. And I don't think their offensive line is great at pass blocking anyways. I think they're more road graders. And they're going to play it close to the vest. They're not going to turn the ball over. They're going to run it. They're going to try and shorten the clock as much as they can. And like last week, Freeport couldn't get the ball over midfield a number of possessions, which created short field. Honeyniga then was able to capitalize and get the scores, and then the score just got out of control in that fourth quarter. And
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was really good to see Honeyniga bounce back off that sour loss to Guilford the week prior. It was good to see them get back into that W column. But as the season now progresses, their schedule they get into, they're at East this weekend, and then they travel to Boylan. And then they come home. Those last two, the one that's on my calendar that's really circled big time is the Belvidere North game. That's one that big one's really circled. And then I could actually, take a step further. That final one on their schedule, Belvidere. So looking at the teams that they have left on their schedule, Harold, my question to you: Does Honeyniga have enough firepower to win their last 4 games?
If they came out of last week a lot healthier than they had been the previous couple of weeks. They lost some players. They lost Jarvis, which was a 2-way player for them on the lines. They lost Mateo, who was their starting middle linebacker and one of their running backs. They lost him early in the season to an ACL.
Right.
They lost a couple other kids along the way. They came out of last week healthy. They're getting healthier.
Right.
I think they have enough firepower to win all those games,
right.
except North. Boy, I don't see anybody in the conference being North. I'm going to be honest with you. I'll be. It'll be hard pressed for anyone to beat North. I love the way Belvidere plays, and I think they're going to keep it a lot closer than what we would want. And I'm not a betting guy, but if I was, I would say the over/under is probably 9.5 on that. Just hopefully it doesn't go to double figures. Okay. But
right.
But DraftKings, you can hit me up. Just kidding. I don't bet on high school sports. But
all right, Harold.
It does have enough explosive offense to run the ball. They got a couple of good backs. Banker's a good running back, not a speed merchant, but a good high school back that'll get you.
He's gonna. I mean, Harold. He's gonna get. Harold. He's gonna do enough to get you 2 to 3, 5. He may bust one every 2 to 3, 4 series. He may bust one. But again, they, like I've said since week 1, I just don't see. I don't see the talent. They're not loaded at key positions, particularly the skill positions. They're not loaded. What they have at the defensive, offensive line is no slouch. I think that's their strength. I think their Achilles heel right now is what they have at the skill position.
Yeah, I think their most talented skill position player is Brady Jarvis, who plays both ways. He's a fine athlete. He's a very good athlete. Is he an upper echelon athlete in the Nick 10? I don't know. That's hard to tell. He's not with Messiah Tilson. He's not with Booker. He's not with, Tayshawn. Right. I mean, he's just not, he's not there, but he's a good high school athlete. Right. But he's probably not going to get you take the ball 60 yards. If you throw it out to him in the flat, he's probably not going to take it 60 yards, at least not consistently. And that's what's going to make it tough for Hononegah to create that space, those explosive plays where you go from a 7-point game to a 14-point game in 5 seconds. That's not the way Hononegah is built this year. They're going to need to just, as the game goes on, they're going to wear the other team out. They're going to grow that lead to 10, to 17, to 24, 21, and then just by the end of the game, they're going to have the score like last week as they beat Freeport. I think that's the games other than North. I think that's what they're probably going to see, or you're probably going to see, because they have a very good defensive staff. Coach LeMay does a great job over there. And Coach Zimmerman's, he's been around a long time, and he's probably going to be a Hall of Fame coach at some point. They know what they're doing over there to get the wins they need to get.
Oh yeah, I mean, right now they're playing decent football right now. I mean, let's not say that they're sloppy. They're playing decent football right now. I just think that again, there's just a down year for them at those key positions, as we see week in and week out. So hopefully, they can find those playmakers here over these next 3 to 4 weeks before they actually, punch their ticket to the playoffs. So, Harold, we're going to keep our foot on the gas here. I'm going to go to our next part here. I'm going to talk about our top 5 teams, our Bailey Pot top 5 teams. And this week, our top 5 teams are as follows. Harold Bone and I put this list together along with Scott Leber as well. Belvidere North at 1, Guilford at 2, Harlem at 3, Hononegah at 4, and Freeport at 5. Harold, I think we did a good job here with our list. I think a lot of people would agree with us.
Yeah, I think we would, based off of schedule, based off head-to-head competition, and based off the fact that North is undefeated. Guilford just beat Harlem. Harlem beat Hononegah, and Hononegah beat Freeport, right? So, if you look at it that way, it's all good.
It's gonna be really interesting to see. Again, we started this last week, and it's already changed because last week we had Freeport at 4, Hononegah was at 5. So it's going to be really interesting to see over the next 4 weeks what's going to change. Will Freeport get back to 4? Will Freeport, bump up to 3? Will one of our top 3 teams here on our board, will they drop a game, and then would they move to 3 or 4? So it's going to be really interesting. So folks, continue to watch. We'll be highlighting this each and every week here on the Bailey Pod. Again, our top 5 teams here on the Bailey Pod after week 5. Again, Belvidere North 1, Guilford 2, Harlem 3, Hononegah 4, and Freeport 5. Great job, Harold.
Yeah, I'd love, you know what, Tim, I'd love if someone made a comment on YouTube what they think their top 5 is. You know, if you think we have them wrong, go ahead, leave a comment. We'd love to. We'd love to see it. Love to talk about it.
We'll invite you here on the Bailey Pod. You know, we can take it a step further. You know, so, but no, Harold. Hey, I want to thank you for joining the Bailey Pod tonight. Definitely means a lot. It's been fun, man. I hope you have a great weekend. Get your belly full of a lot of football. There's a lot of football on this weekend, on college and in the pros. So let's get out. Continue to support our high school programs here in the area, folks. Get out. You got 4 weeks left. Not a lot of time left on the clock before our high school football season culminates with the regular season. So, Harold, without further ado, man, I'm going to go ahead and close. And again, I really appreciate you joining me tonight.
Hey, Tim, thank you. Always appreciate the opportunity. And I'm going to pass this along for every Nick 10 fan. We appreciate the exposure you're giving the coaches and players and everyone in the Nick 10. Keep it up, my friend.
Absolutely. Harold Bone, everybody. Appreciate you, Harold. Talk to you soon, my man.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, folks, what another great show. I think Coach Donnelly is going to do some really great things over there at Belvidere. Again, they have Belvidere North this weekend. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Again, congratulations to Belvidere on their big win last weekend against Boylan last Friday night. Folks, just get out. Make sure you guys get out. Go support your teams. You know, you got 4 weeks left on the clock. Not much left before the weather breaks as well. You know, I think next week is supposed to be kind of cool. Temp's supposed to actually dip. So get out this weekend. It's supposed to be in the 80s, in the 70s, 60s, dropping down about 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So get out and enjoy some Friday night football. Guys, I want to thank you again for joining me on the Bailey Pod. Have a good night, folks. Be safe. And I'll see you here next Thursday again here on the Bailey Pod. Thank you.